Have you ever walked into a room and noticed that certain men just naturally draw attention? They're not always the best looking or the tallest or even the most confident, but there's something about them, something subtle, psychological, that pulls people in. And what's wild is most guys have no clue that these subtle behaviors are the true game changers when it comes to attraction. I'm not talking about cheesy pickup lines or pretending to be someone you're not. I'm talking about real psychological tactics that amplify your attractiveness without you having to fake anything. Because the truth is, you don't need to be fake to be fascinating. You just need to understand the rules of the psychological game and start playing it like a man who gets what he wants. Let's get into the first one. And this is powerful. Most guys completely miss this because they're focused on what to say, not how they show up. The first trick is controlled presence. Here's what I mean. In Neil Strauss's book, The Game, he describes how mystery and attention work hand in hand. You don't need to talk nonstop to be seen as charismatic. In fact, often the most magnetic men say less, but what they say lands deeper. They don't fill silence with noise. They command silence with intention. Imagine this. You walk into a bar. Most men are trying to be seen. They laugh loud. They fidget. They over-explain. But the man who takes a second before speaking, the one who scans the room slowly, who looks a woman in the eye and holds the silence for just one extra beat before saying anything, that's the man everyone notices. Controlled presence means you're not rushing to prove yourself. You're letting others feel you, your energy, your stability. Women pick up on this subconsciously. It screams, "I'm grounded. I'm not seeking validation. I am the validation." And here's a little exercise. Next time you're in public, slow everything down by 10%. Your movements, your speech, your reactions. Watch what happens. People start reacting to you. That's controlled presence. Now, let's move to the second psychological trick. This one is straight from the playbook of natural seducers and socially intelligent men. Mirroring without mimicking. Most guys hear about mirroring and go full robot mode. If she crosses her legs, they cross theirs. If she leans in, they lean in, but that's not mirroring. That's mimicry. And women feel the difference. True mirroring is subtle. It's about energy, not action. You feel the pace of her speech and you gently match the rhythm. If she's soft-spoken, you lower your tone. If she's animated, you allow a bit more playfulness to come through. You don't become her, you resonate with her. Why does this work? Because people are naturally drawn to others who feel in sync with them. It taps into a deep psychological need for belonging and familiarity. Mirroring builds trust fast, but only when it's calibrated. Here's a Neil Strauss example. When he shadowed pickup artists, he noticed that the naturals didn't just copy, they anticipated. If a woman seemed reserved, they gave her space, slowed down the vibe. If she was open and teasing, they matched the fire. That's the secret. You don't force connection. You tune into her frequency and let her feel that you get her, even before words make it obvious. Which brings us to the third psychological trick. And this one is deceptively simple: controlled vulnerability. Listen closely. This isn't about trauma dumping. It's not about telling your life story to make her feel sorry for you. Controlled vulnerability is about showing just enough depth to spark emotional intimacy without losing your masculine edge. Most men make the mistake of either staying completely closed off, the tough guy with no emotions, or they overshare in hopes of appearing authentic. But attraction lives in the balance. When you reveal something small, a challenge you faced, a fear you had, or even a lesson life taught you the hard way, and you do it with calmness and ownership, it shows strength, not weakness. Psychologist Brené Brown talks about vulnerability being the birthplace of connection. But the key is, it must come from strength, not neediness. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're talking to a woman and she mentions that she had a rough week. You could say, "Yeah, I get that. I've had moments where everything felt overwhelming too. But I learned that pushing through actually gave me more than I expected." You're not making it about you, you're relating. You're human, but you're not broken. That's attractive. Controlled vulnerability tells her, this man feels deeply, but he's not emotionally chaotic. He's self-aware. He's real, and that's rare. So let's recap real quick before we move to the next part. 1. Controlled presence. The energy of a man who doesn't chase attention but effortlessly attracts it. 2. Mirroring without mimicking. tuning in without turning into a copy. 3. Controlled vulnerability, showing depth with strength, not drama. But that's just the beginning. There are still 7 more psychological triggers that you're probably not using. And if you are, maybe not to their full potential. The next one is especially dangerous in the right hands. Because once you apply it, you'll start to see people, not just women, responding to you in ways that seem almost unfair. Let's go deeper. Now, the 4th psychological trick is something that's often misunderstood. And because of that, most men completely waste its power. It's called strategic unavailability. This isn't about playing hard to get just for the sake of it. It's about becoming the kind of man whose time, energy, and attention are earned, not handed out freely. In The Art of Seduction, Robert Greene talks about how desire is fueled by distance and tension. If someone knows they can have you anytime, their emotional investment drops. But when they sense that your attention is selective, it becomes valuable. Think of it this way: people don't crave what's always available. They crave what's rare. And when you position yourself as a man with a mission, with purpose, with standards, people instinctively work harder to earn your time. The key is to be unavailable for the right reasons, not because you're trying to manipulate, but because you have a life that excites you, goals that drive you, and you don't drop everything just because someone pretty walked into your world. This activates something deep in the female psyche: competition and curiosity. Why doesn't he text back immediately? Why is he busy on a Saturday night? It creates a mental loop where she starts thinking about you more. And when someone's thinking about you, they're already halfway emotionally invested. Now let's move into trick number 5. This one is rarely discussed, but insanely powerful: controlled contradictions. Let me explain. Attraction thrives in contrast. If you're 100% predictable, you become boring. But if you show controlled contradictions in your personality, in a grounded, congruent way, you become fascinating. This is the guy who's masculine and protective, but also gentle with animals. The guy who's confident in a room full of people, but doesn't mind being quiet and listening. The man who leads with strength, but has a spiritual side. These contrasts activate curiosity in women. Why? Because they suggest complexity, depth. Neil Strauss mentions this in The Truth: How Women Are Wired to Seek Emotional Variety. If everything about you is one note, there's no discovery. But if you have layers, if you surprise her just when she thinks she has you figured out, she stays hooked. Here's a practical way to start showing this. If you're usually logical, let her see moments where you act on instinct. If you're known to be serious, insert moments of unexpected playfulness. These aren't personas. They're facets of who you are that you've probably underused. Controlled contradictions tell her, "There's more to me than you think." And that's magnetic. Now let's move to trick number 6, a silent weapon that few men master: emotional pacing. This isn't about what you say. It's about how you move through emotional moments in a conversation, especially with women. Let me paint a scenario. You're talking to a woman. Things are going well. Suddenly, she brings up something emotional, maybe a past relationship, a fear, or even something she's struggling with. Most guys panic. They either try to fix it or they shift the topic because they're uncomfortable. But what the truly attractive man does is pace the moment. He doesn't rush to respond. He doesn't flinch. He lets the moment breathe. He's not emotionally reactive. He's emotionally present. He meets her energy with groundedness, not judgment. This creates what psychologists call a safe psychological frame. It makes her feel seen without feeling analyzed. It makes her feel connected without pressure. And when you can do this, when you can hold space for emotional intensity without losing your calm, you become the kind of man she trusts deeply. That trust? That's the foundation of irresistible attraction. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be there, steady and real. And here's the kicker. When you master emotional pacing, you also master tension. And tension is the secret ingredient in seduction. Think of it like music. Without pauses, it's just noise. But when you place the silence just right, it becomes unforgettable. Let's take a breath and bring this all together so far. We've now explored 6 psychological tricks that most men overlook. 1. Controlled presence, the power of calm dominance. 2. Mirroring without mimicking. Subtle resonance, not imitation. 3. Controlled vulnerability. Realness with masculine frame. 4. Strategic unavailability. Becoming rare, not reactive. 5. Controlled contradictions. Showing layers that fascinate. 6. Emotional pacing. Mastering tension through groundedness. Each of these builds on the last. And when you start weaving them into how you live, not just how you date, something shifts. People don't just see you as attractive. They feel drawn to you because you're no longer performing. You're embodying something rare. And we're not done yet. There are 4 more psychological levers that will change the way you move in any social environment, whether you're at a party, a date, or even just walking into a cafe. The next one is especially subtle, but once you use it, you'll notice people leaning in, literally and metaphorically, without even knowing why. Let's move into deeper territory now. The 7th psychological trick is something that operates below conscious awareness, but once activated, becomes a powerful amplifier of your attractiveness. It's called anchored confidence. Now, you've heard of confidence, every guy has, but most men treat it like a mood. I feel confident today, so I'll be bold. I'm not feeling it, so I'll hold back. That's unstable. That's situational. But anchored confidence is different. It's when you attach your internal power to something deeper than external approval. Let me explain. Anchored confidence is when your sense of self is rooted in principles, not outcomes. You walk into a room, and even if no one looks at you, you're centered. You talk to a woman, and even if she's cold or distracted, you don't flinch, because your confidence isn't based on whether people respond positively. It's based on how congruent you are with yourself. Neil Strauss observed this with guys who had high social status but couldn't keep women around, because their confidence crumbled the moment they were challenged. Meanwhile, the men who had inner reference, who weren't, emotionally thrown off by rejection or disapproval, kept women intrigued even in silence. This level of confidence is trained, not gifted. One way to start anchoring yours is through identity-based journaling. Ask yourself, who am I when no one's watching? What do I stand for? What am I no longer willing to compromise? Then, in every interaction, especially romantic ones, check in. Are you acting from your truth or just reacting to get approval? This subtle shift rewires your presence. And trust me, women can sense this immediately. When you're unshakable, you become unforgettable. Now let's dive into number 8, the art of calibrated eye contact. This is more than just holding her gaze. Anyone can stare. But what separates magnetic men from the rest is their ability to communicate entire emotional frames with a single look, without saying a word. Here's what most men do wrong. They either avoid eye contact completely, or they overdo it and come off as creepy or aggressive. But calibrated eye contact is nuanced. It adjusts based on the energy of the moment. When you meet a woman's gaze, do it with stillness. No rush, no tension. If you're amused, let it show in the corner of your mouth, not in words. If you're curious, soften your eyes, don't widen them. Think of your gaze as an extension of your intent, not a demand for attention. In the game, there's a moment where Neil learns that maintaining eye contact during silence, especially right after a teasing remark or vulnerable share, creates an emotional pull. It signals presence, confidence, and emotional availability all at once. Here's a move to try. Next time you're speaking to a woman, say something meaningful, even lightly, and then pause. Hold her gaze for just a beat longer than feels comfortable. Don't flinch. Let her feel your stability. That micro moment will stick in her mind more than anything else you say. Now, onto trick number 9, owning the frame. This is one of the most advanced seduction tools, and when done right, it elevates your entire vibe without needing flashy lines or external validation. Owning the frame means you subtly control the emotional context of the interaction. You decide the reality both of you are stepping into. Most guys fall into the woman's frame. They agree with her worldview, her jokes, her energy, just to keep her comfortable. But that's not attractive. That's submissive. The man who owns the frame doesn't dominate, he leads. If she's sarcastic, he teases her back while keeping composure. If she tests him, he responds with grounded humor, not defense. If the vibe is awkward, he names it with charm. Is it just me, or does this place feel like the set of a bad rom-com? Frame control is what makes her feel like she's in your world, not just observing it. And this creates emotional gravity, the sense that things are more exciting, more real, more alive around you. One exercise to practice frame ownership is to create micro-narratives. For example, instead of saying, "Nice to meet you," you say, "You look like trouble. I'm curious whether I should stay or run." You're setting the tone, creating tension, flipping expectations. The more you practice this, the more she leans into your world. And when she's in your frame, attraction becomes inevitable. And now, the final psychological trick. It's the one that ties all the others together. Number 10. Radical congruence. This is where everything we've talked about integrates. Because if you do every trick in the book, eye contact, presence, pacing, vulnerability, but it doesn't align with who you really are, women will feel it. The attraction won't land. Because humans, especially women, are wired to detect incongruence. Radical congruence means your words, tone, body language, and intent are all speaking the same message. You're not pretending, you're expressing. And that, ironically, is what separates the real seducers from the tryhards. Women may not know what NLP stands for. They may not read psychology books, but they know when a man is being real, and they know when he's performing. So how do you practice this? Start with brutal self-honesty. If you're nervous, own it without apology. If you're impressed, say it without pedestalizing. If you're attracted, show it without attaching your worth to her response. When your behavior is aligned with your beliefs and your energy is aligned with your words, you become undeniably attractive. Because you're not filtered, you're not confused, you're just you, fully expressed. Radical congruence is magnetic because it gives her permission to drop her mask too. And in that space, real connection is born. Let's bring it all full circle. You now have 10 psychological tools that go far beyond pickup lines or surface-level tricks. These aren't tactics for manipulation. They're frameworks for transformation. Ways to become the kind of man who naturally attracts not just attention, but respect, curiosity, and desire. Controlled presence. Mirroring without mimicking. Controlled vulnerability. Strategic unavailability. Controlled contradictions. Emotional pacing. Anchored confidence. Calibrated eye contact. Owning the frame. Radical congruence, each one powerful on its own. But when integrated, they change who you are at your core. They elevate your interactions. They shift your outcomes. And most importantly, they allow you to move through the world not trying to impress, but simply expressing what already makes you exceptional. So now you've got it. 10 psychological triggers, not gimmicks, not tricks to fake your way into someone's heart, but real grounded tools that amplify who you are, not who you think you should be. And if you've made it this far, you're not just curious, you're committed. That already puts you ahead of 99% of men out there who are still looking for shortcuts instead of substance. But here's the thing, knowledge alone doesn't change your life, application does. And the moment you start applying even just one of these principles in your daily life, in your conversations, in your posture, in your mindset, you'll begin to feel it. That shift, that quiet confidence, that magnetic presence that pulls people in before you say a single word. And I want to keep helping you sharpen that edge. So if something hit home for you today, whether it was the idea of radical congruence or that subtle art of owning the frame, let me know in the comments. Which one of these 10 psychological tools are you already using? And which one do you want to master next? Also, I want to hear your stories. That moment when a woman looked at you differently, when the dynamic shifted, when you felt that you were becoming the man you were always meant to be. Your story could inspire someone else who's just starting this journey, and maybe, just maybe, save him from years of trial and error. So drop a comment. Like the video if this added value to your life. Subscribe if you want more real, no-fluff content that actually transforms the way you show up. Not just with women, but in every aspect of your life. And share this with a friend who needs to hear it. Someone who's stuck in overthinking. Someone who needs that wake-up call. Be the man who lifts others, not the one who hoards the game. Because this isn't just about being more attractive. It's about becoming the kind of man the world remembers. Let's keep growing. Let's keep leveling up. Together. I'll see you in the next one.